Hey guys, welcome back to Jess and Reads Romance. I'm Jess and today is the start of the historical romance readathon. I'm so excited. It's a week-long readathon with a live show at the end of it where we're going to talk about all the books that we read, what was our favorites, what was our least favorites, all that jazz. I'll link all the hosts down below and the live show will be on July 4th on Lisa's channel. That information will also be down below. I previously shared my TBR and originally I want to say 6 books. Okay, I had 7. And then Lacey, Lisa, and Jess were sharing all of the TBRs that they were tagged in. And I was seeing like a lot of books and I was like, am I lowballing myself for a week-long readathon? So I decided to officially add 2 more books to my TBR, which is Silver Storm by Cynthia Wright and Governess Gone Rogue by Laura Lee Gerke, which I haven't read any books by either of those authors, so they're both new to me authors. I'm really excited about that. The first book I decided to pick up for this readathon is The Making of a Highlander by Elisa Braden. I have the audiobook for this and it's something that I purchased a while ago because I saw it on sale. The cover really caught my eye and the premise of it also sounded really phenomenal. And let me tell you, the second this book starts, I was completely swept away in the story. I absolutely love the heroine so much. Everyone calls her in her little village in Scotland Mad Annie. And she sees ghosts and she's the only one that can see this ghost. There's another like wise woman in the village that she kind of takes advantage of, like people who want to have like home remedies or like a love potion or whatever. Not very clear if she's actually a wise woman or not at this point, but she's like the only person that Annie can really talk to about Finley, which is her little ghost best friend. And Finley was a ghost that appeared after her mother died. And so what I find really interesting, and I absolutely love this so much, because if you guys know me, you know that I love a strong family bond with my characters in any story, no matter what genre. I just love great family ties. And this story definitely has that because Annie's mom was widowed when Annie was just a baby, and she remarried to this lord, Angus, and he is this gruff man, and he already had like 4 sons, and so they got married whenever Annie was only like very little, like 3 or something. But Annie's mother tragically died whenever she was about 7 years old. But what I really love about it is that she and her stepfather and all her stepbrothers have such an amazing relationship. The way that she is so affectionate about her really gruff stepfather who's always like bellowing about something, and she just like completely handles him, and she's so used to that. And she grew up like a tomboy. Her brothers taught her all kind of stuff, and she walked around the village freely in just like pants and like a tartan. She has so much free will, and everyone just kind of like indulges her, even though some of the village people aren't very nice about it. They whisper behind, her back that she's Mad Annie, and she talks to ghosts who aren't there, a little bit touched in the head, she's not all there, and she's just like a hoyden. Now Annie also has this very interesting relationship with John Huxley, who has this like decrepit castle next door, and he's an Englishman. He has this property, he was willed this property, and I think that John Huxley is connected to another series. It definitely sounds like he's connected to another series. Maybe some of his sisters, he has like 4 sisters or something, have books that Elisa Braden has already written. But there's some sort of land dispute, and he's kind of in a dispute with her father. His father's like dragging his feet, but also it's because there's just a lot going on, but it makes the story fly by so fast. Like I'm already like 25% of the way into this audiobook, and I'm just like, I'm so not bored, and I'm loving all the characters. One of Annie's older brothers is in jail, and so that's kind of a conflict. Like, how are we going to get Broderick out? We need to clear him of all charges. They're having some trouble with the law and the courts and stuff like that. So Annie's father is like not willing to deal with John Huxley for the moment. John Huxley says that he can't wait to get out of Scotland. He's like so over this weather and this area, and he wants to go back to civilization. He's not quite a dandy, but he is a little bit more proper than all of like the Scotsmen that surround him. And I love the way that Annie and John Huxley talk to each other because she riles him up so much, and she calls him English, and it's like not technically an insult. It's just kind of one of those nicknames that bothers that person, but you're not saying it to like be mean. You just want to see them kind of blow their top about it and stuff like that. And she's always teasing him about like being super fancy and like not a rugged Scotsman, not being able to really like survive, or he doesn't have what it takes to be a landowner in this area and stuff like that. And I absolutely love it. So what happens is John has an opportunity to kind of come to Annie's aid, which gives him an audience with Annie's father, and he makes a deal. He wants Angus to deal with him with this land, but Angus is like, if you can beat my sons at the Scottish Games in the springtime, then we'll worry about it. And so John takes him up on that offer, and Annie's having some trouble because her ghost best friend Finley suddenly disappeared, and it's like so horrible for her. She feels like she's like missing a limb, and she's wondering what happened to Finley. She's very afraid. She doesn't know if he'll be able to come back, and she does end up by finding him, and Finley makes like kind of this statement that shakes Annie to her core. Is he saying that he wants to return, and the only way he can return is to be reborn, maybe by my son? He mentioned you must marry a lord, and so she's like, okay, that's my plan. I have to become a lady, marry a lord, and maybe I can have Finley back. Maybe he can be reincarnated. So this is the premise for the teaching trope. Annie wants to teach John Huxley how to beat her brothers at the Scottish Games, and she asks for him to give her lady lessons in return because, like I said, she is a tomboy. She's a hoyden. She is very uncouth. She speaks like her father and her brothers, and she doesn't have like that dainty air of refined lady. She walks with purpose, and it's just, I love it so much because John Huxley is already enamored of her. And I love that there's this moment where John's just like, I don't want her to change. I can't see her as anything but Annie. Do I want her to be like this buttoned up little miss doing these coy smiles, not speaking her mind? Because Annie definitely speaks her mind. And I love that about him. I love that he loves her for exactly who she is. And he actually doesn't want her to change, but he's going to take her up on her offer, and I just love it. I just love their relationship so much. Now, what I plan to do is, since the Grace Calloway, I only have that in ebook form, I'm going to listen to audiobooks by day, read the Grace Calloway at night. I don't know how long it'll take me to finish it. It just depends. But I can't start tonight because I need to read A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor for our Patreon exclusive, which is tomorrow. And I know I'm last minute, but it happens all the time, and it's kind of part of my reverse harem vlog. I'm gonna throw that in there. So I won't be starting the Grace Calloway tonight, but hopefully tomorrow I will be starting the Grace Calloway, which is possibly the one that I'm most excited for besides the Making of a Highlander. All right, guys, I'll keep you updated with how this book is going. I'm loving it so far. Like, great pick for the start of the historical romance readathon. Reading update for the Making of a Highlander. I just finished, and I love this book so much. I really do. I love the characters. They were perfect for each other, and there was just so much going on, but in the best sort of way, because everything captivated my attention, and I was so invested in every aspect of the story. I was invested in Annie's mission to save Finley. I was invested in the romance. I was invested in John Huxley's backstory and how the way that he felt about Annie was kind of tied up in that, and Annie really had to figure him out. I was also invested in her brother and how they were going to get him out of prison, how they were going to save him. And this romance took place during a really long time. There was some time jumps, like a couple months passed, like the winter months passed and stuff like that. And it definitely wasn't like insta-lovey. The book didn't start and then they got married like a month later or anything. It like took time, and it was just wonderful. And I cannot wait to read the second one. I've already ordered the paperback for this one and for book 2, because book 2 has a very stunning figure with an eye patch on there. I think I know who it is. I decided not to read the synopsis because I'm pretty sure I know, but I'm just excited to get the paperback in. But anyway, I did my spinner wheel for the next audiobook that I was going to start, and I'm not going to start until tomorrow, but it landed on Love and Other Scandals by Caroline Linden, and I'm excited to start that one. It's like a brother's best friend romance, but I'm pretty pleased that the first book that I started for this reading vlog is a 5-star read, and I love it. It's also going to be the gift for my patrons for summer, and yeah, I was really impressed by Elisa Braden, my first time reading her. I'll update you guys tomorrow once I start the Caroline Linden book. All right, guys, reading update for Love and Other Scandals by Caroline Linden. I started this audiobook this morning, and the narrator is not my favorite narrator. At least I don't know that I've read any other books that she's narrated before, but the choice is interesting because she kind of sounds like an old lady. And I don't want that. I don't want old lady voice to narrate my 24-year-old. You know what I'm saying? She kind of sounds like Claire Foy as Queen Elizabeth in The Crown. She has that very old Hollywood accent going for her with this one, stressing like some of the vowels, very rounded. Anyway, it wasn't working for me, and I was actually struggle busing through a good portion of the first part of the book. At least I would say the first 10 chapters of this book was slow. It was a little bit slow. So the premise of this book is Joan, and she has an older brother who's a little bit of a hellion. He has a best friend named Tristan, and one time he came over and like her mom was just like, you're never inviting this dude over again for the holidays because he is just a prankster, and absolutely not. So Tristan has this reputation. And then Joan's mom ends up by becoming pretty ill, and her father decides to take her to Bath to kind of recuperate, see a doctor over there. Her brother has to go to their country estate because there's some sort of something happening over there that he needs to take care of. Her mother's kind of a strange sister comes to look after her. She had a reputation, and Aunt Evangeline is going to look after Joan. Joan's brother also asked his friend Tristan to look after Joan as well. Just like check on her, keep an eye on her. I know Evangeline's watching her, but just make sure that she's okay. Maybe ask her for a dance at a ball because she's like a wallflower, whatever. And I really love this because Joan was a very interesting heroine. She's really obsessed with these pamphlets that are published with an anonymous writer who's basically documenting her sexual exploits with a bunch of men about town, and it's a very scandalous thing to be reading, and she wants to get the next volume, and Tristan actually follows her into the bookstore, and she kind of leaves without buying her book. And so he purchases it, and it's like wrapped up, so he doesn't know what it is. And that's kind of the start of their flirtation, is him returning this book to her. They end up by having a little moment in a quiet corner at a ball, and it's just like Tristan is slowly starting to get enamored of Joan. Joan is also kind of falling for him. He's very charming. He's a lot different. She doesn't consider him to be boring, and she's kind of struggling with her mother wants her to be like a perfect debutante, don't put a toe out of line, always cautioning her about being like a perfect lady. And I don't think her mom's like mean. I just think that her mom really isn't like seeing Joan. So it's actually kind of freeing that her mom and her dad are no longer in London during the season, because she gets to be a little bit more free with Evangeline, who they have a similar figure. So they have a fuller figure, and it's like the 1820s, and they still have those empire waist gowns that is very unflattering for curvy women. Women with busts. You don't want an empire style gown whenever you have big boobs and hips and stuff like that. I hate this style of gown, and I hate that the Regency is such a popular series to write in, because like, no, give me Victorian. But I really love that when Evangeline comes, she's like, oh, well, I have an Italian dressmaker, and even though the cut of the gown is not actually what's in style right now, it's going to be much more flattering for your figure. So I really love how Evangeline really helps Joan figure out her own style, her own taste, and gives her a little bit more confidence, because that was one of the things that was kind of not working to her advantage when she would go to balls. Everyone would kind of whisper behind, her back about her outrageous outfits that just did not flatter her at all, even her hairstyle. So I'm enjoying it so far. Once I got past the weird audio quality, I just did not like the choices the narrator was making. I don't know that if maybe this is just her voice that she uses for historical romance. I'm not sure, but I don't like it that much. And the bad thing is, with any play, you can only do 1.75 speed. I would be at like 2.5 speed if I could, and you can't go above 1.75. That's the only downfall that I found with any play so far. But yeah, I'm going to continue listening today. Hopefully I will finish very soon so that I can jump into another audiobook, and then tonight I'm going to pick up Olivia and the Masked Duke because I have it on ebook, and yeah, I'm excited about that one. It is time for a reading update, and I wasn't vlogging while I was reading a couple books because unfortunately I kind of hit a slump in this reading vlog because the books weren't quite working for me. But before I get to those, I still need to give my rating for Love and Other Scandals. I ended up by actually liking the book. There was a few things that I felt like could have been better. The beginning was really slow, like I said, but the middle part was really good. But then I feel like we also hit a snag towards the end where there really was no confessions of love. There was quite a few misunderstandings that weren't cleared up until the very last chapter, like at the very, very end. And that's the reason why this was like firmly in the 4-star range for me, but it was still an enjoyable read. I still really like that. And I completely stand by my rating after reading 2 more books after that. I did immediately start accidentally compromising the Duke, and I was listening to it before I was doing the live show for our Patreon where we reviewed A Lady of Rokesgrave Manor. And the premise for this one is that the heroine Adele, her father's only a baron, and her stepmother is horrible. They really want her to marry this earl. I want to say he's an earl. He's a titled gentleman using the very loosest term for that word, because he actually assaulted her. And Adele's like, don't make me marry him. And the dad just like pretty much doesn't care. And it's really frustrating for me because Adele said that her dad wasn't always like this when he was married to her mom before her mom tragically passed away. They were a very loving couple and they loved their daughters. But then he like married this lady and he completely changed. And now I hold him just as responsible for his behavior as the wife. Like the wife has influence, but the dad turned into an ass too. Because when Adele's like literally begging him, like, Dad, he hurt me. Did you not see my bruises? He was just like, well, he did the honorable thing to offer to marry you, and now your honor is going to be restored. And it'll satisfy, and then you'll be connected to somebody who is very powerful. And it was just so sad to hear that about Adele. And then they go to this house party where there's going to be some overnight house guests and her best friend Evie. This is her parents' ball. The hero, Edmund, is the Duke of Rochester, and he is looking for another wife, but he basically just wants like a companion. He doesn't actually want to like consummate the marriage. He doesn't want any more kids because he's a little bit traumatized from his first marriage where his wife died in childbirth and blamed him for it. Like, basically said, hey, this is your fault. And he had really loved her too. So he just wants a mother for his 2 daughters because his daughter is turning, I think it's the one that's turning 6 that asked for a mother for her birthday. So he's like, yeah, I'll get married, but like there's going to be no consummation, no more babies. I'm not going to risk somebody's life like that. And I also don't want to marry somebody who I will have feelings for. So he thinks that Evie, which is Adele, the heroine's best friend, is a perfect match because he's like, I'm not really attracted to her. She seems like a perfectly biddable girl and I'm going to offer for her. Well, the problem is Evie doesn't want to marry him, which leads to a very interesting situation where I was just like, this is so messed up. And I feel like Adele has no people in her corner. She has no friends. She has no family that will stand up for her because she confides in Evie and she's like, I don't want to marry the Earl who assaulted me, obviously. But there's a local villageman. He's not titled. He's offered for me in the past. And I think that if I can get caught in his room, my parents will have no choice but to bless a marriage between us. So she is planning to get the key from Evie so that she can be in Mr. Atwood's room. But she ends up by going into the room and she has had too much sherry and she actually gets in bed with the person who's in bed. It is Edmund in bed and he thinks that he's dreaming for a while and he likes what he feels. And they are kissing and stuff and then they're busted. Evie purposefully gave her the wrong key because she didn't want to marry this guy. She didn't want to marry Edmund, who was considered the Mad Duke, which I don't understand how he earned his reputation because it was rumored that he killed his wife, but it was very clear that his wife died in childbirth. So I don't understand how that rumor even started. So Evie, her BFF, was A-okay with setting her best friend up to marry somebody who has this reputation. Like, Evie didn't know this guy. She's like, I'm so sorry, it's better you than me. And like Adele still considers Evie her friend. I didn't understand that. I honestly didn't understand that relationship at all. I really did find that the narration also was not helping matters. I very much did not like the narrator at all. She sounded very melodramatic and it made me feel like Adele was. I wouldn't say that Adele's over dramatic herself as a character, but I felt so bad for her. I understood she was very much longing to be loved. She really wanted to be a good stepmother to her new stepdaughters because she knew how it felt when her stepmother basically was like, didn't want to do anything with her and was kind of mean to her. And by bonding with Edmund's children, she starts worming her way into Edmund's heart. But she also does something I don't really love, where she kind of is a little clingy and begging him to be with her a lot. It's the whole book. It's Adele pursuing Edmund and Edmund saying like, I can't. And it was just very frustrating, especially towards the end. I didn't feel like the conflict toward the end. I knew it was coming. I didn't really love it. There was a lot of similarities between this book and The Duke and I by Julia Quinn, with like Simon not wanting to have kids, and yeah. It just wasn't my favorite. Definitely not my favorite by Stacey Reed at all. I think that she has improved with her writing with the books that she's written more recently. So I'm going to give this book 3 stars. Then I started The Rogue You Know by Shanna Galen. And I've read the first book in the series. It was really fun. And I knew that this was going to be a series that featured class difference. In the first book, the heroine is part of basically a pickpocketing ring in Covent Garden. They're called the Covent Garden Clubs. And she marries into the aristocracy. Well, this next book was about her friend Gideon, who also kind of had a crush on her in the first book, and the younger sister of the hero of the first book, Susanna. So it was going to be a class difference, but the heroine is part of the aristocracy and the hero is a pickpocket. I had high hopes for this one because I loved Earl Just Want to Have Fun so much. And unfortunately, this just didn't even feel like it was a connected series other than the characters. Like, it just didn't feel like the same type of book that I was expecting from Shanna Galen. And also my opinion really suffered because of the similarities to Tangled. So the hero Gideon, he's a pickpocket, he's a thief, and he is tasked by this guy named Bezel to go get this necklace. He finds the necklace and he basically runs away. Bezel thinks that he's trying to undercut him and decides to make Gideon pay. He sends his dog after Gideon. And Gideon lands in the room of Susanna. And Susanna is the new sister-in-law of his friend. Susanna obviously does not recognize Gideon, and she bashes him over the head with a candlestick. When she discovers there's a necklace, she hides it. And then she's like, I will give you back your necklace if you do something for me. I want to go to Vauxhall because her mother is very overprotective and will not take Susanna to Vauxhall. And she's like, if you take me to Vauxhall, then I will tell you where I hid the necklace. The whole plot of this book is getting to Vauxhall. And like, they're in London. It's not like they're in another town and they need to travel. This book happens within, like, I don't know, 2 days. And if they only had money to take a cab, they could have been in Vauxhall like in, I don't know, a couple hours. But for some reason, this plot dragged on so long. It just was not really working for me. It was okay. The romance between Susanna and Gideon was okay. But honestly, I didn't really connect with either of these characters. Gideon wasn't my favorite character by Shanna Galen. And Susanna was a very naive, I don't know, a little bit childish in a way. And Gideon, I don't know, there was just nothing charming about him. So you can see why I didn't want to do updates for these, because they were just not working for me. I really contemplated not DNFing this book, but moving on to another book. But the problem was, I was also in the middle of reading Olivia and the Masked Duke, because I also started that ebook last night. I was also having an issue with this book, and I was like, if I let myself start skipping around, I feel like I'm never going to finish a book. So I forced myself to finish The Rogue You Know, and I ended up by giving this one a 3-star because the middle parts weren't bad. They just were fine. They were just fine. It wasn't really great. The ending was fine. It wasn't really great. But besides the opening scenes basically following beat for beat Tangled, even including a scene where they're like accosted by a bunch of like tough looking men and they want to turn Gideon in because he has a price on his head, and Susanna kind of saves him because she's like, I need him to take me to Vauxhall. Haven't you ever had a dream? And I'm just like, this is Tangled all the way. And it's just annoying. It was just annoying. I don't like whenever stories follow beat for beat some sort of movie or other type of media that I'm familiar with. And I'm like, yes, we can draw inspiration from there. Maybe a little nod, but like beat for beats like that, I don't care for that. It aggravates me because it feels uninspired. Like, you can't make it your own. Anyway, that's a personal opinion. So for Olivia and the Masked Duke, the first chapter in this book really kind of blew me away. I loved it. I was like, oh, this is going to be such a great romance. The heroine is a young girl of 12, and she was doing this kind of scavenger hunt to get this crown. And it was in her family's property, and it was during the winter. And while she was trying to get this crown, she actually fell into a frozen lake, and this young duke rescues her. There is an 11-year age gap between them, so he's already a duke and he's married at this time whenever she's 12. But she does have like a case of Ollie's moving. Sir, can you get away from my tripod? Sorry about that. I moved a little bit, but I can't help it. He's moving. So she develops a case of hero worship for Ben, and he kind of treats her like a little sister. And then we have our time jump where she's 19 years old and Ben is 31. So that actually makes it a 12-year age gap. 12-year age gap, yeah. My problem with this story and how it quickly took a turn for something that I wasn't really enjoying in the very next chapter was because Olivia turns 19. This is her 19th birthday. She's at a ball with her two best friends, and she is determined to be with Ben right off the bat. She's like, I'm in love with him. And she keeps saying this throughout the book. I'm almost done with the book. I'm about 60% of the way through. But she keeps saying that she's in love with Ben. My problem is I never watched her fall in love with him. I'm just supposed to believe that over the years, the hero worship and the friendship that they shared just developed into full-blown love. And the scene that actually tipped her over was whenever she was 18, she spied Ben with one of his lovers in the stable yard, and she was turned on by that. And that instantly, she knew she was in love with him after seeing that scene. She was turned on, so she was in love. Like, this doesn't work. I wish that there was a gradual, oh, we're friends, oh, now you're a lady now, and I wish we saw a gradual change of feelings between Ben and Olivia. And the fact that she is pursuing him so hard. Her whole plan is, oh, I'm going to get him alone, and then I'm just going to confess my feelings. How do you think that's going to go for you, boo? How do you think that's going to go for you? He is friends with your dad. He really respects her dad. He has his issues in his past. So he and his first wife were wild, and they got into some very bad things. They were like using drugs, and they weren't faithful to each other. They were very passionately in love, and they married young, but then it kind of just all fell apart after that with like jealousy and drugs, and just they weren't a good match. They kind of were each other's own worst enemy. It was just not a good thing. So he doesn't want to really get married again. And also he sees Olivia as this young girl who has been like the only good thing in his life. And he definitely doesn't want to mess that up and like, I'm no good for you. I'm too old for you. So when she makes her confessions of, I love you, I'm in love with you, and she kisses him, he's like, oh my God, whoa, no. Like, you just had too much champagne. It's okay. We'll forget this ever happened. And she's like, no, but I'm in love with you. And I'm just like, how do you know you're in love with him? I don't feel it. And I don't like when authors tell me something and don't show me she's in love with him. And I don't think that the flashbacks of scenes when she's younger, like 14, 15, 17, whatever, I don't think that's really adding to the story in terms of me believing that this is not just kind of girlish infatuation, because it sounds like girlish infatuation. Olivia feels like an immature heroine, and I'm speaking as a person who really likes age gaps. I have shouted so many age gaps from the rooftops. One of my favorite books of all time is a 15-year age gap father's best friend romance. So yeah, that's pretty like out there, but it worked for me. And I feel like if you're gonna have an age gap, the younger party, whether it be the female or the male character, I really need to feel like they're mature enough to handle a relationship, especially if they're in their late teens, like 18 or 19. I need to see that these characters are mature. So that's definitely one aspect that's just not working for me. The main aspect, the romance, I'm not believing it. And then the series is called Lady Charlotte's Society of Angels. So it's Charlie's Angels, okay? They randomly meet this lady named Lady Charlotte, and she's like, call me Charlie, and she recruits them. Specifically, she seeks them out, okay? She has them solve like one little riddle, which was the easiest riddle to solve. And she's like, yep, you guys are perfect. Like, you should join my society. We're in the business of helping women, just helping women. It's very vague terms. And so Olivia and her two friends, which I was talking to Crystal about this, there's a lot of things in this book that's like, the author gave these characters quirks, but they feel like quirks that are kind of foisted upon them, and they don't feel really natural. It's not really an endearing trait. Like, one of them wears her ferret around her neck all the time, and it's just like, that's not working for me. The quirkiness of the Willflowers, as they were dubbed, and they like took their name back, and they're like, we embrace that name. It was supposed to be something that was supposed to be derisive, and we just took it back and we embrace it. So this is also where I feel like, since Olivia tried to shoot her shot with Ben and Ben shot her down like multiple times at this point, I was like, you know what? There really should be a time jump of a couple years. Doesn't have to be a lot. It could be like 2 years. She can turn 21 or 22, and she can grow up a little bit, be a little bit more mature, and then maybe it'll be easier for Ben to accept. And maybe approach Ben a little bit differently. You know, be a little bit more subtle. in your advances, Olivia. And when Olivia starts meeting with Charlie, it solidified the fact that this book needs a time jump, because Charlie starts training these girls basically to become ninjas. And she's like, just give me a month. These girls, these 19-year-old girls will become ninjas in a month. Like, they've only been training for a couple weeks, and now they're like masters at like investigation and disguise and combat. There's a scene that I just read. Olivia throws a knife and she like hits a bullseye, and they're like, oh my God. And she's only been training for like 2 weeks. And I'm just like, no, it would be so much more believable if she would have been at this for a couple years. And also, I really didn't love, and don't get me wrong, I'm not really convinced with Olivia and Ben's relationship. I'm not convinced that they're a love match or anything. This is basically just lust. But Charlie said something when she found out that Liv was obsessed with Ben and wanted to marry him and was in love with him. And she was just like, you're too young to give up your dreams for a man. And I'm just like, you've only known her for a couple of weeks, and these are actually your dreams. Like, she had no interest in like helping young women before you came along. It's only been 2 weeks, and she claims that she's been in love with Ben for a couple years. So her dream is actually to be with Ben and not to be this kick-ass, badass woman that she's supposed to be, and I don't believe. So it annoyed me a lot because I felt like Charlie, this random ass woman who she hasn't known for very long, was overstepping her bounds, because you know that she's been hurt, and she just like, love is like the greatest weakness and all this, and you need to be kick-ass, independent ladies. And I'm just like, oh my God, no. This book is trying to do too much, and I don't like it. And then now we have a BDSM, light BDSM element. Ben is apparently a dom. And when they start getting a little bit intimate, he just goes straight into the spanking and the sirs, and it just feels very weird because, like I said, Ben has always looked at her as a kind of younger sister, and he's been definitely fighting against all of his feelings that are starting to develop because he never looked at her before she started pursuing him to a very aggressive degree. And they keep mentioning, like, you're not a child anymore. You're not a little, or he calls her a little girl, and she's like, I'm not a little girl anymore. And it just makes me feel icked out. So I'm a little icked out by the age gap, and I don't feel like she's mature enough to be with Ben. And I also feel like Ben needs to talk about his predilections. He's a dom, and he needs to explain to her what that means. If you're going to include this type of stuff in your book, I need to have that conversation with the characters. So this book is not going great. It's probably my least favorite that I've read so far. I'm not going to DNF it. I'm going to continue to read it. I did spin my spinner wheel, and I got Silver Storm by Cynthia Wright. And this is the book that I picked for the prompt Not in Europe, because I think it's supposed to be in America. That'll be the next audiobook that I'm going to start now that I'm done with the Shanna Galen book. But since it is the afternoon, as soon as I finish Olivia and the Masked Duke, I'm actually going to pick up the Scarlet Peckham book, The Duke I Tempted. Those are my plans for the night. I will update you as soon as I finish Olivia and the Masked Duke. Like I said, I'm basically reading to the end so that I can know if it's a 3-star or if it's under a 3-star. I'm leaning towards under a 3-star right now. All right, final reading update for Olivia and the Masked Duke. I gave this book 2.5 stars. I really didn't enjoy it at all. Their love really wasn't believable. I just felt like it was all wound up in lustful feelings. I didn't really believe that she was in love with him, and she was so immature. He wasn't the greatest either. I'm not at all saying like he was a perfect hero and she was not good enough for him or anything. Just a lot of things didn't work for me. I do want to mention Charlie, though, Charlie's character, because she really is this stranger that just comes in and takes these girls under her wing and starts training these girls for very dangerous sorts of missions. They're not even trained for very long, and she's like, absolutely, they're mature enough to be going undercover, dressing as prostitutes where men can totally accost them. Like, these are 19-year-old aristocratic girls. They really are not very worldly at all, but yet we expect them to completely be able to handle going undercover and bust this drug ring. Like, it just does not make sense. Just does not make sense. And I also feel like Charlie's character really contributes to the conflict between Olivia and Ben. So here's some slight spoilers if you don't want to know, but I really hated that Charlie made it a stipulation that our society's secret, so if you want to be a part of us, then you can't tell anybody, including Hadley. Like, I know you're in love with him, but like, we already know that Charlie like hates the idea of these girls tying themselves down in marriage. Like, she's anti-marriage and anti-love. And I'm like, That's fine if you don't want that for yourself, but you don't push that on other people. And I really felt like Charlie was a snake in the grass because she was just like, yeah, you know, I'm doing this for your own good, because Hadley just won't understand. Like, he will totally forbid you from doing this. And I'm like, rightfully so, because like I said, she's been training for 2 weeks and you're throwing her to the wolves being like, well, she can handle it because she's a strong woman. I'm just like, no, that's not how this works. You want to behave like a ninja? I expect you to actually have the skills of a ninja. And don't just tell me that she's competent after 2 weeks of training. It just doesn't work like that. I'm sorry. And so honestly, I felt like Charlie was setting up Olivia and Ben's conflict, like purposefully. She knows that keeping secrets from Ben is going to piss him off and he'll push Olivia away. And I feel like Charlie wanted that. I truly did. I felt like she was like rooting for Ben to mess up so that Charlie could be like, oh, I told you so. But that's okay, because you have the Society of Angels to fall back on, and you don't need him. You just need us. And I'm just like, ooh, snake. And it's even a bigger problem when you consider the fact that Ben opened up to Olivia, said, look, I had this past. I was involved with drugs. My wife and I didn't have a good marriage, and this is why. She cheated on me. She lied to me. She made me jealous on purpose because that's what she said made her feel loved. She lied to me all the time. I just can't take you lying to me, so just don't lie to me. And she's like, no, I promise I won't. Then in her head, she's like, oh no, I hope he doesn't find out this big secret that I'm keeping from him. She literally tells him, I won't lie to you, I won't keep secrets from you. And then in her head, she's like, but I am keeping secrets because I'm sworn to secrecy for the Society of Angels, a membership which you have been tied up in only a couple of weeks. I'm just saying, it just doesn't make sense that her loyalty is so caught up in the Society of Angels to the point where she knows that this is eventually going to have to come out. She's like, well, he's going to stop me from investigating. But yet Charlie also sends Olivia to places where she's like, well, Hadley might be there, so like make sure he doesn't see you. You want him to see her. You want him to see her so that he's like, what the hell are you doing? You're lying to me? And that's what happens. That's what happens. And whenever he finally finds out, whenever she's like, well, I'm part of a society for ladies and we're helping women and we go undercover, we like investigate. And he's rightfully appalled that she is involved in this. He literally just got drugged and almost left for dead. His former friends, the crowd that he ran in while he was married to his first wife, the same people that Olivia is investigating, tried to make it look like he was committing suicide. These are dangerous people. Of course he's going to be like, yeah, I don't want you around this. You're not equipped to handle it. Like, if you had the tools, that's one thing. But, like, he's just like, you don't. And I'm like, I agree. She does not. I don't think that she should be doing what she's doing. Of course, he doesn't react well to this. He's like, you lied to me, but, you know, I took your virginity, so I'm going to have to marry you, but you're going to obey me. Like, you're not going to be doing this, and I will, like, lock you in the house to make sure that you don't do this because apparently you have a lying problem. And, of course, that wasn't a great thing to say. Wasn't. But like this line, I highlighted it because I was like, eye roll. And I saw that it was a favorite highlight. And I'm thinking that people are highlighting this because they're like, preach girl. But I'm just like, no, boo. You did wrong. Don't put this on him. Charlie was right. She said the cost of love would be my freedom. I didn't believe her. I defended you, told her you were different from other men, that you understood me. I told her you would not make me choose between my love for you and my calling. Yet here you are issuing me an ultimatum. Her calling. She had no idea. She had no mission. This was never a dream of hers. This is a dream of about 2 weeks. I felt like Charlie was like grooming them. It was weird. I didn't like it. So yeah, 2 stars. I was pretty fed up by the time I got to the end of it, and I did not care that they ended up happily ever after together and everything was all peachy keen. Don't care. I probably will not read any more in the series at all. If I do give Grace Calloway a try, it's definitely going to be within another series. So yeah, now I'm giving myself permission to start carnal urges, take a little break from historical romances. I need a recharge. I need something that I know that I've been anticipating, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to really love this book. So I'm going to take a break and then I'll come back and update you guys once I restart my audio. I'm still going to start audio tomorrow. Hopefully I'm in a better mood whenever I start my next one. Alright guys, this is a final reading update for this historical romance readathon vlog. I decided that even though I have Saturday and Sunday to continue reading on this historical romance readathon, I've read quite a few books already, and I kind of wanted to end on a high note because I picked up The Do Guy Tempted by Scarlett Peckham, and I just kind of read it all the way through. I didn't do any updates because I was enjoying it so much, honestly, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much I love the story and how much I love the characters, because the only other book by Scarlett Peckham that I've read is The Rakess, and I personally didn't love it that much. It was hard for me to connect to the heroine, but I didn't have that problem for this book. I did notice that Scarlett Peckham, she tends to write frustrating characters on purpose, so some would say an unlikable heroine. And Poppy can be that sometimes, but I understood her so completely and I fell in love with her character. So Poppy is such a green thumb. She takes care of these plants. Her uncle, she's the granddaughter of a viscount, and her uncle really kind of took care of her and let her have a greenhouse on his property, but he recently died. And so there's these cousins that's going to be taking over the estate, and all of her plants are on that estate. So she has to move them off because she's building up this business. It's about to be a success. She just got tapped to do this ball for this duke. Archer is the Duke of Westmead, and his younger sister Constance wants to throw this big shebang, and she wants Poppy to decorate the ballroom with all kind of flowers and everything. And so she needs this. She needs the shop. She needs the money. She needs to be able to move her greenhouse on the sly and not let the new owners know. And I love it because Constance is kind of matchmaking between Archer and Poppy. Archer has gone through a traumatic past. He knows that he needs to procreate for the duchy to continue in his line, because the next person in line is somebody that he knows is going to mismanage all of the tenants and stuff. And so he's like, well, I have to have an heir. I have to have a son. So I'm just gonna do a marriage of convenience. Constance, pick a biddable girl who like won't mind if I like basically spend all the kind of money on her, and she'll just kind of leave me alone. I don't want emotional attachments. I just want an heir, and I'll take care of her for the rest of her life. Now Constance is a bit of a meddler, and she's also like, what's the female version of a fop? That's what she is. She's into fashion, she is a little bit flighty, she's very dramatic, and her character is pretty interesting, and I'm pretty sure the second book is about Constance. But I really love the way that she pushed Archer and Poppy together, because she sees this spark between them. Now Poppy, besides needing to move all of her plants off of her uncle's land, there's this guy named Tom that keeps harassing her. He's like, we're gonna get married now. And she's like, no, I have no interest in getting married, and especially not to you. She doesn't say it that forcefully. She's a lot nicer, and I'm just like, Tom needed to be set down so hard. He was aggravating me so much. Another thing I didn't mention, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it felt so easy to read. It was so easy for me to just fly through this book. Archer is also a member of this club, and it's on Charlotte Street, and that's what the series title is. It's a den of iniquity, and he personally likes to get flogged. And you can tell he's going through immense pain from his trauma, and he likes to counteract that pain with like actual physical pain. And it kind of breaks him out of the numbness. And I love how when he meets Poppy, he's starting to get stuff from Poppy that makes him not really want to go to Charlotte Street. He's like trying to hold back his emotions from Poppy. He's trying to hold back all of these feelings that are bubbling up that remind him of what he lost, and he's trying to fight it so hard. And this book is really hot. This book is really, really hot. I loved it. I loved whenever Poppy found this book with illustrations. We love seeing the etchings, and she was very intrigued. And what happens is they end up by having to be in a marriage of convenience, because Poppy and Archer were seen walking very early in the morning by themselves after the party. So he goes into this marriage, and he's just like, I'm never gonna be able to give you like love, but like all I expect is an heir, and I will give you all the greenhouses that you want. Like, I will write in the marriage contract how many window panes do you want for your greenhouse. You want special glass? Like, she's making these demands, and he's like, yes, I will give this all to you. And so she's like, okay, good trade-off. I'm going to expand my business. Like, I don't want to stop running my business, and I don't want you to interfere with that. And he agrees to all of it as long as she gives him an heir. And of course they go through some things like misunderstandings, and those are the things that really frustrate me, but I was like frustrated in a good way. I was venting to Crystal, she was laughing at me, and it all turned out really beautifully, and I really did like it. I'm gonna give this book it's like 4.25 stars. Not quite a 4.5, but like I really liked it. So that's where I'm going to end this vlog, this readathon. I still do have 2 more books on my list. I have the Cynthia Wright Silver Storms, which I still have the audio for that one. I'll probably listen to it later. And then the Maya Banks, I really am in the mood for like a Scottish Highlander. There's just a couple other books that I need to read before I can like jump back into historical, but I definitely plan on reading those. I'm just not going to include it for this vlog. I'm going to end where I am so that I can move on to other books that I want to read this weekend. I definitely want to have time to be able to read those, and weekend reading is a lot easier for me than weekday reading, especially since I have those on ebook. So overall, for the historical romance readathon, my favorite by far, and I'm so glad that I got these in, was The Making of a Highlander by Elisa Braden. This is a new author to me. I really freaking love this book. It was the first book that I read, and it was my favorite. I immediately purchased the paperback, and it was the reward for our patrons who receive like seasonal books, and I was like, yeah, this one definitely. I also bought the second book. I don't know when I'm going to read it, but it's going to be soon. It's so beautiful. I love these covers so much, especially this one. This one's fine. So fine. Look at his eye patch. Look at him. Okay, I'm so excited. The Taming of a Highlander. Yes, it's Broderick. Okay, I'm so excited. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this readathon vlog. I'm so excited that I discovered an author that I really loved, and I'm so excited that I gave Scarlet Peckham a second chance because I really, really love The Duke I Tempted. I will be reading the second book for the Rake Appreciation Society. They're going to review that for the month of July. I'm like, what month is it? If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified of any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye guys!